You may have noticed that some of our most beloved foods no longer taste the same.
Cuman rasanya nanti agak berkurang, nggak normal gitu. Anyep gitu kalau kita dingin gitu rasanya.
And at the heart of the changes is the climate.
Waduh, kalau tanya cuaca sangat berantakan.
When it's warmer, the tannin that gives the bitterness and astringence in tea is rising.
On land, almost every crop that we grow is impacted by changing climate.
And Indonesia, Southeast Asia's largest agricultural producer, is reeling from the effects.
We have a lot of climate issues and also disasters caused by the climate change.
How is climate actually changing the flavor and farming of coffee, cocoa, tea, and rice?
Jadi sebenarnya yang tadi kita habis cupping nih. Jadi cupping itu kan kita nguji cita rasa kopi gitu. Kita ngeliat nih rasa kopinya sebenarnya kayak apa dari sampel yang datang.
Mia and her husband run 5758 Coffee Lab in Bandung, the provincial capital of West Java, a training center with roasting and barista classes.
I really wish you can smell this. Sadly, technology is not that advanced yet, but cheers, guys.
Indonesia is Asia's fastest growing coffee market and the world's fifth largest coffee consumer. There are more than 460,000 cafes across the country, the most in the world. And it's not just drinking coffee. Indonesia is also one of the world's top coffee producers. It mainly grows two types: Robusta, the bitter variety used in instant coffee, and Arabica, premium beans flavored for specialty brews that make Indonesia famous.
Arabica Indonesia tuh dia punya karakter rasa yang khas ya, salah satunya spiciness-nya juga khas gitu ya. Terus sekarang tuh dia punya karakter, banyak sekali karakter buah.
But even as Indonesian coffee gains global recognition, all is not well.
Jadi kalau dilihat sekarang climate change itu berdampak sekali sama kopi. Jadi zaman saya waktu itu baru belajar itu dibilang kopi itu ditanamnya sekitar 650 gitu ya, 700 itu Arabica. Terus kemudian jadi tahun-tahun berikutnya 750 ke atas itu anjurannya adalah Arabica. Terus sekarang kayaknya 1200 aja udah kurang bagus gitu Arabica karena pesnya kan lebih banyak gitu di situ.
If you find that your daily cuppa at your favorite coffee joint no longer tastes quite the same, the weather could have something to do with it.
You know that coffee hit that you take in the morning, and you feel, I had my first cup of coffee, I'm awake, I'm going. You get your first caffeine hit, and you go with it, right? But then, if you realize that it changes a little bit, subtly keeps changing, right? Coffee is beginning to be affected because of temperatures are changing, weather patterns are changing, and you've got many other diseases and insects and many different forms of issues that actually come with the growing of coffee and cultivation of coffee.
Jadi ya ada satu kopi yang dari sekitar Kalosi ya Mas ya. Jadi dia itu dulu tuh sangat menyenangkan karena kan dia sangat clean, dia sangat sitrusi gitu ya. Tapi ya tahun kemarin karena matahari itu nggak terlalu bagus di sana ya gitu. Jadi akhirnya karakter rasanya tuh lebih banyak ke karakter buah-buah matang.
First, let's see how coffee is grown in Indonesia. Arabica beans grow ideally between 18 to 22 degrees. So they will find most of Indonesia too warm. This means they must be planted in places like the highlands of Puntang on the island of Java, where Udan Banu shows us around a coffee plantation. It's his job to check the quality of beans grown here.
kenapa orang banyak menyukai Arabica. Dia lebih ke kadar kafeinnya sedikit dan karena kompleks ya, ada rasa fruity, ada mungkin bodinya, terus manisnya ada juga. Ya, ini adalah contoh pohon kopi jenis Arabica ya. Nih kebetulan ada yang merah nih. Nah, kopi ini dari awalnya nih cherry nih bentuknya.
Udan Banu is part of a cooperative that works together with around 1,000 farmers in different locations in West Java to grow Arabica. Coffee from the plantation is sold locally and also exported to France, Germany, and Japan. But the farmers here are struggling with the changing climate.
Berubah sih biasanya lebih cepat ya panennya itu. Lebih lambat, sorry. Biasanya yang mungkin di bulan Mei itu akan terjadi di bulan Juni, Juli. Itu dari cuaca. Contoh misalkan kalau si cherry yang siap petik, kalau terlalu banyak hujan juga, pada saat kita rasain si cherry-nya ini yang merah ini, itu biasanya kalau lagi pas lagi banyak musim hujan di masa pematengan, itu biasanya kurang manis juga.
The coffee cherries are changed at the molecular level. Heat and erratic rainfall alter the bean's chemistry. The result? More bitter, less acidic, less complex. In Puntang, farmers plant large trees, known as shade trees next to coffee plants, to shelter them from the sun. But as temperatures keep rising, even this may not be enough.
Jadi kalau di kebun pohon pelindungnya kurang, itu juga akan berefek ke rasa. Bisa jadi rasanya flat ya, kurang nutrisi juga.
Indonesia was a Dutch colony when coffee cultivation started in Java. Seeds from the Arabian Peninsula were planted in Java by the Dutch in the 17th century. That's the origin of the term a cup of Java. Indonesia is now the world's 4th largest coffee producer. Plantations stretch across Sumatra, Java, Sulawesi, and the Eastern Islands. Robusta output is forecast to hit 11 million bags by May 2026, up from 9.3 million last year after recovering from severe weather. Arabica? Mostly flat, holding steady at around 1.5 million bags. That's according to the US Department of Agriculture. You see, warming weather also encourages the growth of pests, like the coffee berry borer beetle.
Banyak sekali tanaman-tanaman kopi yang sebelumnya produktif mulai kena hama. Jadi kalau dilihat sebenarnya kan gini, kan banyak orang khawatir bahwa wah nanti tahun 2050 katanya kopi udah nggak ada lagi gitu ya. Mungkin bukan nggak ada lagi, tapi dia berganti daerah tanam gitu.
So, taste isn't the only thing changing about coffee. So is its price. In early 2025, Arabica futures in New York hit all-time highs on supply concerns.
The production and the cultivation and harvest drops and the yield comes down. That will increase the coffee price. Number two, not many people want to carry on growing coffee. There's no succession planning in hard work for farming. So you'll have less people actually coming into the market, and then suddenly you realize the coffee production has dropped by 50%.
In another highland in West Java, Kiryono too grows Arabica coffee. He's worried his crop could fail this year because of erratic weather.
Jadi curah hujan juga kalau sekarang nggak teratur, nggak kayak dulu seperti itu. Sekarang lebih banyak curah hujannya. Kadang-kadang sering banget, apalagi nih sekarang ini sampai 3 bulan ini hujannya benar-benar gila nih. Beda dari tahun-tahun yang sebelumnya nih. Pucuk muda itu banyak yang pada busuk. Pas waktu pembungaan juga banyak yang rontok seperti banyak curah hujan seperti ini. Matang sih matang, tapi rasa manisnya itu kurang kalau curahnya hujan tinggi.
Quiriono grows 8,000 Arabica trees. A good harvest can yield around 25 tons of beans. But this season, output could drop to just 8 tons.
Salah satu karena terlalu lembab, ini pohonnya kena jamur nih. Hanya jamur kulitnya nih ada. Busukan, banyak pembusukan. Busuk di pohon. Akhirnya banyak daun rontok, ranting muda juga banyak yang rontok, pada mati-mati. Ini salah satu ini. Terlalu lembab banget nih. Nggak berbuah nih. Malah yang ada juga nanti ini bisa pada mati, ini harus potong.
Coffee is under pressure worldwide. Climate models suggest some growing regions could see yields fall by up to 30 to 35% in the coming decades if warming continues. As for the taste, if you enjoy a cup of Java every day, the change might be subtle. But taste beans from different harvests side by side, and the difference becomes clear.
Do you guys feel different about this coffee? I think this coffee feels like different than our usual from the last time we visited this coffee shop.
Yeah, I mean the last time we came here, I also ordered this one, but the coffee tastes kind of, different, I would say so.
I didn't really notice.
You guys also feel the same?
Well, from what I've learned about coffee and their change of taste, it actually depends on climate change. The climate that it's in would affect the quality of the coffee.
Just learned it.
And it's not just coffee. Another crop that is similarly addictive is also under threat: chocolate.
With chocolate, it's supposed to be messy. Messy makes it good. This is why I love chocolate. And it really helps Mom to lighten up our mood.
Tisa Aunila is a corporate lawyer turned chocolatier. She founded Pipiltin Cocoa, a premium chocolate maker, together with her brother Irvan Helmi. Tisa's love affair with chocolate truly began more than a decade ago, when she found out that her go-to Swiss chocolate bar actually used beans from her home, Java, in Indonesia.
We source the bean now from 7 regions in Indonesia, from Aceh, Bali, East Java, Flores, East Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and West Papua. So each region has distinctive flavors. It's very special. So for example, from Bali, the chocolate tastes more like a fruity, caramel-like, and Aceh is more robust.
Cocoa beans are so precious that they've been called black gold and food of the gods. So what makes them worthy of that title? It is this.
When you crack the beans, you can see the inside is, we call it cocoa nibs. Cocoa nibs is the inside. This is what we use to produce chocolate, the cocoa nibs. So we separate the shells from the nibs. So from there, we make cocoa paste. If we snap the chocolate, it will have a snap sound. It's like this. So it means we produce a good quality chocolate. It means the temperature is complete and it's perfectly tempered. The chocolate will easily melt in your mouth.
At the growing stage, temperature is just as important to a good bean. However, warmer temperatures and erratic rains have cut bean output in Indonesia and accelerated the spread of pests, such as the cocoa pod borer. The moth pest feeds on the pulp and beans inside cocoa pods.
Getting more and more difficult to find a very good quality beans, the very good consistency and the quality fermented beans because of the low productivity, because of the borer, because of the climate change.
I think this will become a lot more challenged. Because with climate change, the insects and the diseases also mutate. They adapt faster than the plants themselves. Insects also tolerate a lot more conditions because their life cycle is short. They actually then become adaptive to what's actually happening with climate, and they keep changing and mutating.
The cocoa plant's optimal temperature range is between 18 to 32 degrees Celsius. In parts of West Africa, the world's largest cocoa growing region, climate change has added roughly 40 additional days per year of heat above this threshold. Cocoa output fell 14% between 2023 and 2024. Indonesia, too, is feeling the heat.
We have a lot of problem with the cocoa in Indonesia. According to prediction, 2050, increase 0.25. Can you imagine 15 years later how hot? With the high humidity, with the high temperature, they affect to the more vulnerable to pests, and it's including cocoa pod borer. Cocoa pod borer is very destructive and reduce a lot of yield of this cocoa in Indonesia.
Puji's research includes tracking the DNA sequences of a number of commodities, including cocoa.
High temperature affect to the taste, flavor, adding to the chains of the biochemical compound. This cocoa create is less chocolate to the fat content. Automatically, I think I reduce the fat content of the cocoa.
Usually, beans are about 50 to 55% fat. The fat is extracted to make cocoa butter. Together with cocoa solids, it's what makes chocolate chocolate. Cocoa butter shapes the bar's flavor, smoothness, melt, and overall balance.
The high temperature is systematically because the high temperature can degrade all of the the chain of from the chemical and taste, due to the low fat content in the cocoa.
Yet even with supply pressures, chocolate demand is going up, growing at about 3 to 5% annually through the 2020s, driven by higher disposable incomes and trends. Chocolate makers like Pipiltin must make sure that they have enough good quality beans in stock. Pipiltin also exports chocolate to Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Japan.
More and more people really appreciate good quality chocolate. People ask, like, what is the difference of percentage in chocolate? For example, we have this chocolate Bali, 70%, and West Papua, 72%. So 70% means the cocoa content. So it means from 100%, 70% of the cocoa content, and then 30% is the sugar or the milk, depends on the recipe of the chocolate.
Yet, in just 2 decades, Indonesia's cocoa output has dropped from 530,000 tons to 200,000 tons. Indonesia used to be the world's 3rd largest cocoa producer after Ivory Coast and Ghana. Its ranking has dropped to number 7. And there's another way climate change is hurting cacao trees, impeding pollination. Cocoa farmer Asep Herian Priyatna knows the problem well.
Nasi kakao ini ribuan bunga, Pak. Ada ribuan bunga nih. Nah, keunikan kakao itu dia nggak bisa berbuah satu pohon. Makanya dia harus ada temennya, ada bunga dari pohon lain. Dan perkawinannya itu membutuhkan angin atau serangga. Tapi karena kegerus hujan, si serangganya berkurang. Jadi yang ngawininnya juga kurang. Akhirnya dengan iklim yang nggak karu-karuan begini, ya kebuahnya jadi berkurang. Karena proses polinasinya terhambat. Waduh, kalau tanya cuaca sangat berantakan. Di Sunda itu ada yang bilang, Bu, kalau Maret itu nggak ada hujan. Nah, artinya Februari itu sudah mulai dia jarang hujan. Sekarang udah belasan hari ke Maret, itu kan hujannya masih banyak.
Asep grows 500 cocoa trees at his plantation. Together with the other farmers in the area, he supplies dried cocoa beans to a foreign-owned chocolate factory in Bandung. He has felt the impact of climate acutely.
Ini yang kena ulet nih. Bisa kelihatan dari ininya kan hitam. Nah, sejak berbunga, uletnya nempel di bunga, jadi dia ikut. Tuh, jadinya begini, amburadul. Oh, ini busuk buah jadinya. Kalau yang ini yang kena jamur karena kebanyakan hujan. Jadi lembab, banyak hujan. Di dalamnya jadi agak kuning.
Cocoa is a vital crop for up to 6 million smallholder farmers around the world, including Asep.
If there is a disruption of the cocoa production, especially related to the cocoa factory, means it is higher cost and will reduce the availability of raw material. Consequence, the price of chocolate will be increased.
In 2025, the price of chocolate has climbed about 15%.
The cocoa companies are beginning to realize that it's actually going to be a lot more expensive. You don't see it on the shelves yet, I think. But if you go to some places, because the cocoa price has gone really out of hand, you realize that the prices are beginning to shift.
Compared to 10 years ago, the price of fourfolds, yes. And we now face, like, from one of the regions they cannot supply because of the rainfall and because of the high temperature.
Despite the challenges, Asep's love for cocoa keeps him going.
Nah itu salah dua yang tadi saya mau sampaikan. Bapak tanya kenapa nanam kakao. Kan kalau sampai kosong kakao, industri kan nggak jalan. Kedua, kami juga berpikir konservasi. Jadi bukan sekedar cari uang dari jualan biji kakao saja.
The climate is also causing some alarm for lovers of a drink that keeps them calm, tea.
I'm going to brew Dewata Oolong, 2 grams of Dewata Oolong. Let's brew it for 90 seconds.
Ratna Sumantri is an author and tea sommelier.
What I do as a tea sommelier, I'll help a cafe, restaurant, and individual to choose their tea, to make their tea menu, and teach them how to prepare it. These are teas from several plantations in Indonesia, from Sumatra and West Java. So we have white tea. We have 2 types of white tea. This one is silver needles and this one is white peony. Both are from West Java. And we also have several types of green tea. The Dewata Oolong from West Java, you can see the color. It's very nice color.
After water, tea is the most consumed drink in the world. Many drink it for its taste and health benefits. But with the changing climate, trouble is brewing for tea.
When it's warmer, the tannin that gives the bitterness and astringence in tea is rising. That's why when we taste tea now, it tastes a little bit bitter and more astringent than before. And also the L-theanine that gives the sweetness to tea is less. That makes the tea now taste less sweeter than before.
What makes tea beneficial are the chemicals found in tea leaves, which we then imbibe when we drink the beverage. Ratna learned about them during her time in culinary school in Australia.
When I first learned about tea, I didn't know about the scientific reason behind tea, but I see that my teachers, they all are so healthy and doesn't aging at all. So, and then when I learned more about the scientific behind the tea has antioxidant that is very good for our health, and also L-theanine, which is, it makes you calm.
So what are the health benefits of tea? Iriana Ekasari, the chairperson of the Indonesian Tea Board, explains.
Jadi dari white tea sampai black tea semua punya manfaat. Yang pertama, semua teh itu manfaat utamanya dari polifenol, antioksidannya. Nah, di white tea yang ini antioksidannya yang paling banyak. Di teh itu juga ada beberapa vitamin, vitamin C, vitamin E, ya, vitamin A juga ada.
The main polyphenols in green tea are catechins. In black tea, these catechins are converted into thioflavins and thiorubicans during fermentation.
Katekin itu apa? Katekin itu sebenarnya zat yang mengandung kandungan antioksidan yang cukup tinggi. Jadi ada penelitian di antara seluruh jenis tanaman, antioksidan yang paling tinggi itu salah satunya di daun teh. Antioksidan itu buat apa sih? Dia menangkap radikal-radikal bebas. Nah, radikal bebas ini ya kurang lebihnya kalau kita lifestyle-nya kurang bagus atau kita stres, itu katanya ada radikal bebas yang bisa jadi inflamasi. Nah, teh ini katanya katekinnya itu bisa menangkap atau menyerap gitu.
Tea polyphenols are currently being studied for their anti-cancer properties. So why does climate matter when it comes to the health benefits of tea?
Apa ya, daun teh itu katakanlah punya satu standar kandungan antioksidan katekin dalam satu helai daun misalnya. Itu dia ideal ketika kondisi lingkungannya pun bisa ideal. Kalau ini berkurang berarti antioksidannya pun berkurang. Artinya dia tidak seharusnya ketika tanaman teh tersebut sehat.
Robbie Badruddin is the general manager of PT Chakra, the company that runs Dewata Tea Plantation in West Java. Dewata Tea Plantation was established in 1932 when Indonesia was a Dutch colony. Robbie's grandfather bought it from the Dutch owners in 1956. The plantation spans around 600 hectares at about 1,200 meters above sea level. Inok is a tea picker at the plantation, just like her mother and grandmother before her.
Sukanya saya itu kalau saya bercanda sama teman-teman, kalau lagi istirahat. Kalau dukanya buat saya itu jauh dari hiburan.
Inok is 50 years old. She has felt the weather changing in the plantation.
Cuaca sih agak panasan sekarang. Kalau dulu kan lain lagi, dingin seperti dulu itu. Kalau dulu itu kan cari teh pucuk itu gampang. Kalau sekarang agak susah.
Apa efek dari katakanlah sebutnya global climate change ya ke perkebunan teh gitu. Itu besar sekali efeknya. Kalau di Indonesia kan hanya ada musim kemarau dan musim hujan. Pola musim kemarau dengan musim hujan itu sekarang sudah tidak bisa kita prediksi lagi. Jadi kalau misalnya hujan terus-menerus selama 30 hari, itu biasanya kelembaban,
dan suhu itu menjadi subur untuk tumbuh jenis-jenis semacam jamur atau fungi, itu menjadi hama penyakit. Atau misalnya terlalu kering, itu jadi ada jenis-jenis serangga, ada jenis-jenis insek yang menjadi bisa eksplosif merusak tanaman.
From the taste, that when tea gets more bitter and more astringent, so people tends to drink less of it. When we drink less of it, and then of course the benefits also we get less.
Today, Indonesia is among the world's top 10 tea producers. However, aging trees, land conversion and climate change curb output and reduce the quantity of fine teas available for export. Production has dropped since 2003 from almost 170,000 to around 119,000 tons in 2024. And now, the weather is expected to get even warmer. Between 1971 and 2020, average temperatures in Indonesia have risen by 0.28 degrees Celsius per decade, with a projected increase of 0.25 degrees per decade from 2000 to 2050. That's according to the World Bank.
What threatens our crops and our food production is usually the extremes, not the averages. So a slow average increase of 0.25 degrees over decades to come is understandable, but the extremes are the key. If you have extreme drought, if you have extreme heat, it may be impossible to grow the crop, but it's also very hard to work outdoors. And so if we're going to have more than 100 days a year in Indonesia that are over 35 degrees, then the outdoor workforce that work in the agricultural industry are going to be put under tremendous stress as well. So it's not just the crop, it's the actual workforce.
And what is happening in Indonesia is happening elsewhere. For example, China too has seen tea production affected by extreme weather patterns.
Since the climate is changing, we need to have more climate resilient cultivar that can adapt to all this changing in temperature, rainfall and everything.
Tea is such an important commodity, particularly across East and Southeast Asia. It's really a burgeoning industry in terms of boutique understanding of the links between climate and weather and tea production and taste. I think it's a really interesting space to be working in and asking these questions. Do we know the answer? I don't think we do. But I think it underscores the importance of conducting fundamental research to try and find out the answer.
The climate is also wreaking havoc on perhaps the most important crop in Asia, rice. This is nasi goreng, or fried rice. It's one of Indonesia's most beloved dishes. This plate made by one of its most celebrated chefs.
But the difference between the Indonesian nasi goreng and the other nasi goreng is we use shrimp paste for the sambal, and we use the sweet soya sauce for the sweetness and for the flavor of caramelization of the fried rice. Sorry, I can share you the smell, the goodness. The smell is so distinctive. So this is the Indonesian nasi goreng.
Ragil was Asian Cuisine Chef of the Year at the World Gourmet Summit in 2018. He's credited for raising awareness of Indonesian food. Fried rice is one of his favorite dishes. But getting the best rice to make the dish is not that easy anymore.
The rice now is not as good as before. And I believe it because of the climate is already changed and aroma of the rice is quite gone. Some good flavor, what I remember when I was kid, is almost gone. The sweetness is not saltiness. Maybe it's similar like umami, but it's almost gone.
Rice is a staple food and a major source of calories for Indonesia's 284 million people. It's a dish that unites hundreds of ethnic groups in this culturally diverse country. It's also comfort food. But this national dish is at risk.
We are in a very urgent situation. For example, in the northern part of the Java Island, the sea level and also the climate change issues has caused so many failed crops. We have very long rainy seasons that has caused floods. So basically this has been causing the rice crops, the harvesting.
Although nationwide output is up, statistics show unmilled rice production has fallen in recent years in West Java, the country's rice bowl. Output slipped from 9.4 million tons in 2022 to 9.1 million tons in 2023 to 8.6 million tons in 2024.
Rice is one of the biggest challenges for the Asian community. It's our staple. And because of the way we've actually cultivated rice, when you've got droughts, when you've got no rainfall for 3 or 4 weeks, your rice harvest is actually going to be a big challenge.
Rice is such a staple food that it really is the thermometer that we can think about when it comes to food stress. As sea level rise floods many of our low-lying coasts, our coastal rice fields are being impacted. They're being flooded by saline water, salty water, and traditional freshwater rice is not being able to be grown.
Saltwater intrusion damages rice crops and cuts yields. But even away from the coast, rice farmers like Sernata still face difficulties.
Kalau dulu emang iya patokan itu petani dari mulai ya istilahnya bulan Januari itu udah mulai pada nanam pertengahan Januari sampai ya istilahnya bulan Agustus. Nah, udah itu. Nah, kan kadang-kadang kalau dulu musim hujan itu ya di awal September ya, gitu. Tapi sekarang malah berubah gitu. Padi mulai mau mekar. Nah, itu dihantam hujan terus-terusan siang malam, padinya juga hitam-hitam, nggak ada isinya. Ya boleh dibilang ya istilahnya yang saya alamin itu nanam padi yang biasanya ya misalkan dapat 1 ton ya cuman 50% gitu. Paling bagus ya 60% gitu. Menurun itu buat para petani di waktu panen yang sekarang di kebanyakan ya curah hujannya terlalu tinggi gitu.
Here's how rice goes from farm to table. Freshly harvested rice is called paddy. It contains about 20 to 25% moisture, too high for storage. So it is dried. The dried paddy is cleaned to remove debris, then dehusked. This produces brown rice, which still has the bran layer. Milling removes the bran, resulting in white or polished rice. And erratic weather has an impact on this whole process.
Nah, setelah itu, setelah dipanen kan lama nggak kejemur, nggak kering sampai 1 minggu, apalagi ya sampai 10 hari gitu ya. Nah, itu sangat berpengaruh ke rasa gitu ya, ketika dimasak itu berasnya itu, karena kebanyakan ya ketika digiling itu nggak utuh berasnya, jadi halus, bubuk ya patah-patah lah. Dirasa juga ya ada rasanya itu kurang. Nah ini seperti ini karena faktor cuaca ya yang curah hujan terlalu tinggi siang malam, nah akhirnya padi ya kayak begini, hitam-hitam separoh, terus yang kuning juga nggak ada isinya. Ya kalau ini masih, walaupun cuman rasanya nanti agak berkurang, nggak sama kayak yang lain. Ya kurang bagus lah, nggak normal gitu, anyep gitu kalau itu dingin gitu rasanya.
Weather doesn't just affect taste. It may also alter the nutritional quality of the grains. A warmer climate could elevate the level of arsenic in rice and reduce the amount of protein and vitamins.
High temperature, of course, this is make the heat stress. Heat stress is effect on the reduced grain. Why it reduced grain? Because the heat, the high temperature effect to accelerate respiration to make sure the time or period to fill the grain of rice.
For Indonesia, rice is a strategic commodity and a mainstay of national food security. In 1998, rising prices of basic essentials, including rice at the height of the Asian financial crisis, sparked riots in Indonesia, which precipitated the downfall of second President Suharto. Food security is one of the main priorities of the current president, Prabowo Subianto.
Kalau kita bicara definisi ketahanan pangan, adalah kemampuan satu negara untuk menyediakan pangan, mendistribusikan pangan dengan harga yang wajar, baik, aman, dan keamanannya terjaga. Tentu kalau di mana-mana kita melihat contoh, kalau kita bicara ketahanan pangan yang paling gampang sekarang, perang Rusia-Ukraine menjadi contoh. Di situ nampak bagaimana ketahanan pangan berperan penting dalam kekuatan satu negara. Tatkala negaranya tidak kuat, tidak tahan pangannya, mungkin dia cuma 3-4 hari selesai.
The government says rice production rose 13.55% to 34.77 million tons in 2025. With domestic consumption at around 31 million tons, the country has a surplus of more than 3 million tons. It's achieved this by expanding cultivation areas, improving access to fertilizers and irrigation. But these require investments.
Obviously, irrigation efficiency is very important. To prevent water loss and nutritional loss is very important. How do you make sure that you have got enough water detention and retention within those areas to make sure you have got sufficient rainfall collection that actually keeps the water there for a harvest? So it's costly. It's not easy, it's not cheap.
It's estimated that for every 1 billion people added to the world's population, an additional 100 million tons of rice needs to be produced every year. Perhaps, ironically, growing rice contributes to climate change. In Indonesia, forests are cleared to create food and energy estates. Rice production releases greenhouse gases, such as methane, into the atmosphere, accelerating global warming. Cultivation of the grain is responsible for about 10% of global methane emissions, according to the World Bank.
Kalau menurut saya, kita harus prioritas. Pertama, kita ada hutan tapi kita kelaparan. Tentu kita harus perkuat. Kita ada hutan tapi kita tidak ada tahan pangan. Mana yang kita pilih? Tentu kita pilih tahan pangan dulu. Sesuai dengan pencanangan Bapak Presiden, pilih ketahanan pangan dulu, kuatkan tahanan pangan dulu, yang lain akan bisa menyusul.
We need rice and we need our staple products. We're going to have to grow them, yes, and we have to live with the fact that there is a carbon input from rice production. We're trying different techniques to reduce the footprint but also increase the yield.
One option is to create more climate-resistant rice varieties.
We hope nowadays actually the international level the rice productivity in Indonesia around 5 ton per hectare based on the statistic. But now we are trying to release a new variety with potential yield above 12 ton per hectare, and not only high yielding rice variety, but also tolerant to flood, drought, and high salinity.
For rice, global crop failure is probably not on the books because of the diversity of locations that we grow at. But there could definitely be significant stress on regional rice production.
Back in Jakarta, it's time for Chef Ragil to serve up his nasi goreng.
Here we go. Seperti janjiku. Ayo, nggak usah pakai malu.
Kadang-kadang kita kalau makan something yang nggak ada nasi itu awal doang kenyangnya chef, habis itu udah
Belum kena no rice, no power. Yes. Nah, cuman masalahnya sekarang tambah lama, tambah jarang nih nasi yang seenak itu. Kalau menurut kamu, nggak tahu ya, anak-anak sekarang kan udah lebih aware sama climate change. Pengaruh nggak gede dari situ?
Pengaruh sih, apalagi kan sekarang udah mulai musim hujan dan hujannya tuh kayak nggak nentu gitu loh. Kadang berhenti, kadang hujan lama banget gitu, nggak nentu banget paling. Mungkin pasti mengaruh banget sih mas.